Chelsea, I think we're good to go.
Sounds great. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Chelsea. I'm the Player Development Coordinator and Foundation Activities Director here in Michigan. It's really great to have you guys join us. We are going to be doing this webinar series throughout every Tuesday in the month of October. And we're hoping to get some extra kind of information for you guys to help plan during that 2021 or for that 2021 season. So we do have quite a few different topics throughout the month, and we have some PGA professionals as guest speakers and then some outside industry people as well. So we're really excited about that. Throughout the call today, we will just ask you guys to keep yourselves on mute so that we can cut back on any background noise. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. Your mute and unmute is down in that lower plane of the screen. Sometimes you have to hover your mouse over it to get it to pop up. And then we also have a chat bar, which is going to be in the upper kind of right-hand side of the screen. So if you don't like messing with the mute and unmute or have a quick comment that you'd like to add, you can always type it in that chat. But I'm going to let Kim kind of get us started and go ahead from here, Kim.
Perfect. Thank you, Chelsea. So for those of you that I do not know, my name is Kim Schaefer, and I am both a PGA and LPGA member, and I serve as the Regional League Manager for the Indiana, Michigan, Northern, and Southern Ohio PGA sections. I work very closely with Chelsea in the Michigan section, and it is our goal to help you with all of your player development needs. So we are really looking forward to these next few weeks as we have several webinars lined up, and we're hoping that you're going to find all of those topics beneficial as you start kind of prepping and planning for your 2021 season. So today's topic is going to be both PGA Junior League and PGA.coach, and specifically how they can work together to make your professional life perhaps easier, save you some valuable time, and really help you be more productive and even profitable in your business. Several of you may already be running very successful PGA Junior League teams. Others may be just starting to think about starting a program. Some of you may have completed the American Development Model and PGA.coach training, and some of you might not have heard about it yet at all. So we feel like there's kind of a mix on the call today. And so what we want to do is just give you a good summary of both, so that you can kind of see how they work together and integrate with one another. So we are going to start today with PGA.coach and the American Development Model. And we have a couple of experts here to talk to you about that American Development Model and how they have played a part in its development and exactly why it's so important. So we have both Chris Snyder and TJ Buchanan with us today. Chris is the Director of Coaching Education for the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. In his current role, Chris and the coaching department support the USOPC by working in coach education, high performance coaching development, and coach recognition for all of the Olympic and Pan American sports. The coaching department it also directs the long-term athlete development system, which is called the American Development Model. So while also operating how to coach kids programs with Project Play and Nike. So Chris does all of those things. So you can see where he's a true expert in his field. And then we also have TJ, and TJ is the Director of Sport Development for World Lacrosse, which is the International Federation of the Sport of Lacrosse. So in TJ's role, he provides service in the areas of NGB development, coach and athlete development, and officials development for nearly 70 existing member countries. So prior to his role with World Lacrosse, TJ served as the technical director for athlete development and curriculum manager for coach development for US Lacrosse. So as you can tell, we have two very distinguished guests with us here today, and they both have extensive experience, not in just athlete, but also in coach development. So we're extremely excited to have them both here with us so they can share their knowledge in particular on the American Development Model and why it's important to all sports. So Chris and TJ, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to kind of kick it over to you guys and let you give us all sorts of new information.
Great, Kim. Thanks so much. It's great to be here. I'll speak for TJ. We're both excited to speak with you all. The ADM programming has been a long journey that TJ has been involved with from his original role at US Lacrosse, and I have been involved with since it started way back in 2012 across all the Olympic and Paralympic sports that the USOPC works with. So the USOPC has worked across actually all 5 of the major entities in golf when it came to designing what would golf's ADM programming be. And they've been on quite a journey, but I can say your sport alone in golf, one that's close to my heart as a high school golfer and continue to golf, it's something that I know PGA America is pretty much so put on hyperdrive to be something that can really benefit everyone that's in this space and the next generation of golfers. So I'll start off by giving a brief overview of ADM as a whole, and then I want TJ to talk to you all about where they've taken things in their sport. So I'm going to quickly share my screen, and if it works just fine, I can present it to you all. So Kim, interrupt if it's not looking great, but looks good on my side.
It looks good. You're good to go.
Perfect. So the American Development Model is really a movement we started across all sports that we could possibly get to listen to us back in 2012 and 2013. What the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee saw was that so many kids were stopping activity, were quitting sport. And we started to work with a friend of ours, Project Play, which is a national organization that's trying to get everyone to realize we need to activate to keep kids in sport, to keep sports strong, and to continue having it be a major part of the American kind of breath that is what is the US. Sport is so important to all of us as Americans. Well, it's tough to do when we start seeing statistics that 1/3 of kids are dropping out of sport between the ages of 6 and 12. And what we were finding is even upwards of 70% of females were dropping out of organized sport by the age of 13. That's really tough to kind of swallow when many of us, our profession is, offering sport to the next generation or current generations. The other thing that was really hurtful to my career as the director of coaching and coach education, where I'm working with coaches on a daily basis, as well as TJ, a lot of his role with World Lacrosse and previous is working with coaches. Well, we're seeing that 26 to 30% of children are leaving sport because of a bad coaching experience. And those coaches are either undertrained or not qualified. So those kind of things were very shocking to us when we discovered them. And we said we need to do something about it. What we decided as the action across as many sports as we could muster was going ahead and building the American Development Model. USA Ice Hockey actually took the first steps in meeting with world experts from Canada, from Great Britain, Australia, to say, how are you keeping kids in sport? We used their model and their knowledge to come back and design something that we could try to push across every sport that we could have listened to us in the United States. And what we designed was a model that encouraged 5 core things. The first is the concept of universal access, not just from a diversity inclusion perspective, but really from a inclusion perspective of retain athletes. Doesn't matter color of their skin, doesn't matter ability or disability. What matters is if they want to try your sport, you need to get them in and keep them in as long as possible. Don't cut. Find ways to shorten the course if you need to keep kids playing, because you want them to get bit by the bug that is loving your sport. We've been professionalizing the youth space, and that's been hurting, getting rid of a lot of kids. The second thing is it's got to be developmentally appropriate. If you take a 7, 8-year-old who's just golfing for the first time and you put them out on a long course playing from the blues, it's a horrible experience. Even if you push them up to the reds, it could still be a horrible experience. How do you find ways where you can move them up so that their shots count and they feel like they're finding success on the green and being able to navigate the course? So developmentally appropriate and building skills that are going to stick with them for life. So the next thing is encouraging multi-sport play and multi-activity play. This is a big one for us because what we're finding is we're professionalizing athletes, and even with golf, as we're talking with Augusta National, the LPGA and the PGA Tour, PGA America, USGA, everyone's saying the same thing. We're not sure why golfers around 10, 11 are being pushed to travel overseas to compete in tournaments. All you need to do is get really good at golf, become a scratch golfer, and start to work on your game, and you're going to give yourself a chance to go far in this sport. Why are we having to travel the world at such a young age? Why aren't we developing lots of diverse talents? Shot making. Why aren't we varying different types of courses around the United States, where we've got more golf courses in our country than any other country in the world? So multi-sport and multi-activity development can make our golfers more diversified versus saying, let's just professionalize young. And that's hurting a lot of other sports, because when they professionalize their athletes, don't let them play anything else, and then all of a sudden you cut them because they say you're not good enough, all you have is an inactive American versus someone who's playing another sport and encouraged to go on and use sport to be healthy for life. The fourth thing was, you got to make it fun, engaging, and challenging. If you make it too easy, where everyone gets a hug and a high five and an ice cream sandwich, and you soften the blow of competition, it doesn't help kids stay interested. They want a challenge. It's why video games are great. They love to stay in them because they can adjust the level of difficulty at any moment to make it more challenging or not as challenging. I kind of relate this to the golf course. You can go ahead and adjust by moving the tees up, moving them back, by letting them hit an extra ball or two, and being able to go ahead and roll it over, once or twice on the fairway or whatnot. You can make it more attractive, but still keep it challenging. So the last thing is quality coaching. And when you look at coaches, this really is a athlete-centric, coach-driven approach. We need to get our athletes to play where they're comfortable and then start to challenge them to move up the food chain. If a coach pushes you too early or isn't knowledgeable in how to accelerate you to the next level, we're in a bad spot. The last thing that's tough for a lot of coaches is when you've been doing it for so long. I've been a coach for coming up on 18 years now in the sport of lacrosse. It's tough to remember what fun is at those younger ages. So sometimes you need resources. And PGA.coach in their mobile app really allows you to take that on the road with you. So the ADM model is here to kind of encourage all sports to have a visual model, to let kids progress up the food chain as they need to, and have these 5 core principles. We've also did business case studies on this, looking across all sorts of sports and different clubs to realize this does not hurt business. It's kind of the obvious economics of the whole thing. If you keep more kids playing, you're going to make more money. If you think about it, if we're cutting kids young, telling them they're not good golfers, why would they come back and keep playing and paying green fees when they could go play another sport or do other activities? So if you keep them involved and focus on retention, you make it super fun. So it's almost a carnival out there on spikes on the putting green. So they're having so much fun and doing different things around the club. They're going to spend more time there, spend more money there. And the biggest thing, they're going to love it for life. So we've done business case studies here with University of Delaware to show these concepts of better coaching, more fun, and getting them to stay in the game. It helps business. It's a very obvious thing. We've had 28 national governing bodies stick in this game with us so far, and our push is by 2024 to have all 50 of our major sports having models where they're pushing kids to retain. This is great from across the board because we feel it's going to help American athletes stay in the game, stay healthy for life. It's also a challenge because as US or PGA America has built PGA.coach, you've got competition from many other sports that want to get those kids to love their sport too. The nice thing I can tell you, though, is the PGA.coach system to get our coaches to come in, get training, but also provide resources so you can actually figure out what fun is, have some activities, build an assessment for your athletes right there on the app, is what's going to keep you ahead of others. You've got some of the best resources that have been built by any of these sports that are in the game today. So you really are ahead of the game. The close second is US tennis, and then a close third is USA ice hockey. So that's kind of how I rank things. You've got a head start here. The challenge is, can we all be smart enough to take the next step? I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to my friend TJ. I'll stop sharing my screen right now and see if I can go ahead and let TJ talk, because what I want TJ to speak about is how at lacrosse they saw this model and now have taken it, not just from his previous work at US Lacrosse, but he's taken it worldwide with this concept, with what he's doing at World Lacrosse in developing many different countries to love their sport of lacrosse. And I think this will just show you how this concept transcends. So TJ, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And so Chris provided a little bit about the what it is and where it came from. And what I'm hoping to do over the next couple of slides is talk a little bit more about why it's important. And one of the first things I want to point out is, working for an international federation, so as in World Lacrosse, we deal with a significant number of challenges that are not uncommon to golf. Everybody looks at the American development model and they go, "Ah, that's great, but it's for kids," right? Well, at World Lacrosse, culturally, some of the countries that we work with, sports are not really a thing until early adulthood, maybe the college or the university years. So the very first thing that we did was focused on the athlete development model as opposed to American, and we've made it very holistic, in that our stages are not divided by a age per se, but it's more by the experience and years of experience or the sport age of the participant. So just a little bit there that kind of shows, the stages. If you noticed on Chris's, there were some ages, whereas in our model, we do not use the ages. We use the sport age or age of experience in the sport. So Chris provided a lot of these pieces. So what I was going to talk to a little bit is how this all kind of fits together, and the why piece and how it will make a difference, in the experience of the athletes that are playing for you. So as we created the athlete development model for World Lacrosse, the first thing we really wanted to do was set out what our vision and mission are for it, right? And it's very clear. We do that in businesses all the time, but we really wanted to make sure that we had these singular visions and missions to know what we were working towards as we developed this model. The real, I'll say, key to this for us as the International Federation, and much like what Chris is doing at the USOPC, is we're not the implementers. We're going to be driving this to our member national governing bodies in currently 68 different countries. And we wanted to provide a framework that was flexible enough for them to adapt to local conditions, experience of lacrosse within the country, cultural norms, things of that nature. So we kept it relatively simple. World Lacrosse ADM inspires a future that affords everyone an opportunity to enjoy lacrosse, right? So right off the bat, we're saying this is for everyone. It's not just for, young athletes. It's not just for coaches. It's for everyone in how this all fits in. And then we have our mission there. The next thing we had to do is really state our philosophy, right? And this is our why, or why it's important to us. And we came up with 5 what I would call core values, if you will, that we're using to drive the rest of the programming that we're providing for athlete recruitment and retention, for coach development, for coach retention, things of that nature. So the first is the idea of players first, right? And that is being athlete centric. So every athlete has an experience that meets them where they are developmentally, right? So right off the bat, we have to do some evaluation, and we're tailoring the experience to the needs of the athlete. That doesn't mean that, the inmates are running the asylum and the athletes are in full control. What it means is we recognize that they each have unique needs and differences in their lacrosse development, and we're going to make a concerted effort to address those different needs. The next piece, again, relates very similarly back to what Chris was talking about with it being fun and engaging, is it should be fun. But that doesn't mean that it's not work, right? Fun means many, many different things. The USOPC has done some research on this, and fun for an Olympian is defined much differently than fun for an 8-year-old playing recreational sport, right? So again, if we are thinking player first, when we start talking about making that experience fun, right, it has to be adjusted to where we are. But very important that it is fun and in retention, right? If something's not fun, why would I keep doing it, right? I'm going to walk away and I'm going to choose another sport or other activity to spend my time in. The third reason that it's important is coaching coaches. Again, there's a drought, if you will, of education for coaches, right? It's very tough to mandate coaching education given the culture of volunteerism. PGA, as an example, you're kind of in a unique position because you have some teaching pros who use it as a profession. And typically when there's financial incentive, things of that nature, you earn certifications, right? As a teaching pro, your rates can increase, right? So I'm more qualified. So there's incentive there. In the bulk of sport, especially international, and in lacrosse particularly, that's not really the case. But what we're really trying to do is provide the tools and the resources so that coaches want to be educated. And we're aligning those with the other principles of the athlete development, thereby providing a great experience for the athletes on the field. Right? The fourth reason why is the idea of retention, right? ADM helps with the retention, the idea of playing and staying. I like to use the phrase as many as possible for as long as possible in the best environment possible. When we combine those three things, right, we have obviously success on the sporting field, but we also have healthier people in general across a society, across our cultures, and in our countries. And then the last piece is the idea of get moving. So participation in lacrosse, right? We want people to develop that love of physical activity. Some areas define that as physical literacy, right? But we want to inspire people to have the ability, the confidence, and the desire to be physically active for life, right? Lacrosse is not a lifetime engagement sport. Golf, however, is. And if I have a love of physical activity, when my lacrosse days are over, right, it can be very easy for me to take that love of physical activity and some of the physical literacy skills that I've learned and transition into another sport that is a lifetime engagement sport had I not participated in it earlier. So you kind of can see, when we put this together, why it's important is that idea of, again, as many as possible for as long as possible and in the best environment possible. And the athlete development model, or as we call it in the United States, the American development model, really starts to encourage that environment and that system, if you will, for the healthy development of people, nations, world, and our athletes. So we won't get into all the stages just for the sake of time, but there's a whole variety of resources there. And I am happy to share this presentation. I'll give it to maybe Kim for distribution if anybody would like to see the entire thing.
Cool.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chris and TJ, for all of that great information. The ADM is still really in its infancy, but it's really making a big impact on sports. I know for golf specifically, one of the biggest things I hear from professionals being helpful is the specific stages of development, and then the ability to use that app so that they can search for activities based on the learning stages. And then they're also able to kind of share that out to their different coaches for it to include kind of the full lesson plans. But do we have any questions here for TJ or Chris? Feel free to unmute yourselves, or you can type over in the chat bar.
So I'm not sure if it's as much of a question as it is just an observation. So before I went into my current role, I was actually a teaching professional for 21 years. And I loved teaching the game, taught a lot of junior golfers. And listening to some of the stats and different things that you shared there, it's scary as to how many kids are leaving sports in general by very early ages, 10, 12, they're already leaving all sports. And I know it used to drive me insane when I would lose a golfer. I would put my heart and energy into, everything I could into those kids and trying to help them along with their golf games. And sometimes you just, I decided that, I like, whatever, football, whatever, they go somewhere else. But it would drive me crazy. And so when I look at all the stats you had and everything that you talked about, and I think about myself personally, I know that when I first started in the golf business, all of my training that I received was around how to teach the swing. Here's how you grip it. Here's how you do this. Here's how you should teach someone to putt, or here's, it was all about how to teach the game. I felt like very early in my career that I had little to no training on how to coach individuals and how to coach them so that they would be motivated and engaged and challenged. And the one thing that Chris said that really struck me was he said, one of the reasons kids love those video games is not just because they're fun, but because they can change the challenge level. And so when he said that, I immediately thought back to my teaching days, and I was like, there were times when perhaps I was maybe making it fun, but maybe I failed to challenge appropriately. And so maybe I lost some of my students because of that. And, I didn't have the awareness or, the knowledge and the education to know where to go, where to take them. And when I look at the current American development model, and like specifically the PGA.coach, when I went through that training, and it highlights out, hey, from these ages to these ages, this level, I feel like there's a lot more of helping our PGA professionals and LPGA professionals learn to be coaches rather than just teachers of the game. Do you two find that to be true in other sports as well, that coaches are not necessarily skilled in coaching, but instead just teaching the mechanics of the game? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts, because that was my personal experience.
Yeah, it's the big thing that we're trying to do across all sports with this concept is get you to understand you need to meet your client where they're at. And if it's a young kid, they come to have fun and to play, yes, to be challenged. Your job, though, as a teacher is to make everything exciting and engaging so they want to be a part of it. And just think about our sport of golf. You got to there's an honor code. There's normally some type of a dress code that you need to adhere to. The goal is to hit the ball as least amount of times as possible. That doesn't necessarily drive you to getting better when you really stink. So how do you go ahead and make it super fun for kids to know that they're going to shoot 100, 120, 130 when they start, but not to give up? Well, I just go back. My first lesson I ever took was at the age of 12 when I switched from other sports, and my dad said, you should try golf. He had picked it up late and said, this will be super fun. Lucky for me, the teaching pro said, hey, you're a pretty athletic kid from playing other sports. I want you to drive the ball with your putter. And I'm like, this is for mini golf. He goes, no, you'll hit the ball 50 to 75 yards with a putter straight every time versus slicing it right and left. And I did. I hit it 75 yards with the putter, and he had me do that 3 or 4 times, and I'm on the green and I'm putting for a bogey. And that's a big deal for a 12-year-old who's just starting this game versus slicing it off into the woods, duffing it 4 or 5 times. That creativity made it super fun for me to realize I could score if I could just not think I had to be a pro early when I wasn't ready. That kind of coaching mentality to realize what your athlete needs to be able to make them successful versus this is the way we do golf and this is the way we teach a swing. It gets you out of your comfort zone. It gets you into things that matter, and you can connect with that athlete. And I just go back to the app, because the app that PGA.coach has developed, it's funny, like I'm holding up now. I have it myself because I'm just one of those guys that gets access to your things. But I have used your workouts for my 4-year-old at home. The activities of playing around different games, my 4-year-old daughter is doing these because I can go in and build a workout when we're playing around. And I put a little golf club in her hand, and we do some other stuff, some chipping and things. But she's doing these activities, so it's teaching me to help her be active while thinking about golf, and we're having a great time at home. So any teaching pros traditionally taught now can think about coaching and have resources at their fingertips to think about how do you make it fun and connect with that athlete. So those things will keep it real. TJ, any thoughts from you on that?
Yeah, I think the other piece, and Chris has done a really great job in his team at the USOPC with helping national governing bodies who are developing these curriculum and resources and steering them away from the technical and tactical aspects of their sport and refocusing on something that's out there called the quality coaching framework, which really is about being a coach and the inter and interpersonal relationships, meeting the social emotional needs of the athletes, things of that nature, and blending all of that together with the technical and tactical. So really taking those experts on the skills, but helping them become expert teachers, which then allows them to meet their athletes where they are, because they don't just step up to the tee box and go, well, this is how I drive, this is how you should do it. They are able to evaluate who their athletes are, what their capabilities are, and understand them as a human through the QCF framework, and then apply that to the technical and tactical skill development.
That's fantastic. Thank you both for kind of a little further explanation there, because that's the one thing that I personally have gotten out of PGA.coach is I feel like it is teaching PGA and LPGA professionals really truly how to coach the individual more than just how to teach the skills of the game. And the challenges that you mentioned there also, Chris, like now that I think back, my pro growing up, some days he would say, hey, I've got 2 challenges for you today. I want you to be able to get up and down from right here to that hole right there with a 5-iron. And you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, I need my lob wedge for that shot, but he wanted me to figure out how to get up and down from here to there with a 5-iron, or he wanted me to hit it in between 2 big tree limbs on a tree. So I had to figure out which club was going to go at which trajectory to get it through those tree limbs. Like he was having me do things that were incredibly creative, yet also very challenging, which obviously kept my interest since that's my chosen profession. So, really interesting concepts right there. So I appreciate all the information that you all shared. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a quick one, more specifically for TJ and the lacrosse side and tying it in, more for the golf professionals. How do you pitch value to the parents that diversified gameplay is going to be best for their student playing lacrosse? Is it truly like setting expectations early and showing them a PowerPoint? I mean, that's one thing that I struggle with the most is I feel like my students really benefit from a model where they learn different skills. They talk about transferable skills, but I always seem to find that the parents don't seem to understand it as much as the student themselves. And if you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Cole. So first and foremost, right, setting those expectations early. But what that means as a lacrosse coach is I'm providing the time and the flexibility for my athletes to pursue other things, right? We all feel like our sport is the most important. And, in this day of early specialization and early professionalization, right? There's in-season practice and training, there's out of season, there's post-season, there's skills coaches. There's all these things that we could do that are just lacrosse. So as a lacrosse coach, the very first thing is I want your child to take time off from lacrosse and do something else. And that's hard, right? That's really hard. I want my team to be the best it can be. I want every athlete to be the best they can be. But as a coach, if I truly believe in the power of long-term athlete development, which, it's the way sport is done and it's the way it's going, then I need to swallow that pill and trust that I'm doing the right things in season so that the athletes will come back, right? But I need to provide that opportunity for them. The other piece is also, there's a lot of, I'll say charlatans out there, right, that say the only way to make it to the NCAA, the only way to make it to the tour is to do this, this, and this. You have to get your 10,000 hours in, right? And we could do an entire hour on just the 10,000 hours principle and how that is flawed as applied to a sport model in some respects. But it's, pointing to those instances that you see are the exception to the rule, not the rule. When you look more holistically at sport, I just saw this in the last couple of days, it was something like 248 of the first 256 picks in the most recent NFL draft were 2 and 3 sport athletes. I mean, the data is there that says this is the path if you want your kid to be a pro, right? And as you look at other sports, that theme just continually keeps coming up. USOPC had done a research project that was at maybe 2014, Chris, where they found, even Olympians, with the exception of early specialization sports such as figure skating or gymnastics, were 2 and 3 sport athletes up until 14, 15 years of age. And they still did other sports as recreational type activities. They didn't just go and, play their chosen Olympic pursuit, but they still recreationally were involved in other sports that gave them that diversified set of skills. I like to use analogies frequently, and I say, if the only tool that you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail, right? And that doesn't work in sport. If I only have one set of tools or one tool, be that lacrosse skill, when I encounter other problems in athletic pursuits or physical pursuits, I'm not going to be equipped to solve them when I try to.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for response for that, TJ. I figured I'd unmute and say thank you myself. No, that's really, really valuable. I think truly this year has been an interesting shift in perspective, I'll say, to where skills are transferable. I speak to it all the time. And if you can learn how to be great in one area or one sport, learning that in the other sports, or finding the one that you're going to be successful with, get a college scholarship, find what options are truly out there for you. You're going to have to play all those different sports, or at least the ones that you enjoy. Because I run into it sometimes with junior golf where the kids don't even know why they're there. So mixing it up, with other sports is very valuable. But yeah, that's all I've got for now. Yeah, thank you for letting me speak.
Perfect. Thank you all. Does anybody else have a PGA.coach question or an American Development Model question for either Chris or TJ? I see that Seth has posted a question, which, Seth, if you don't mind, we're getting ready to talk about PGA Junior League. So I think we will hang on for your question because I think it's going to be answered as we go through this. Anybody else have anything else? Go ahead, Chelsea.
I did just want to mention, Seth brought up something really great in the chat as well a little bit earlier. For those of you who haven't done any of this ADM training, it is available for free for all PGA, LPGA professionals and non-PGA as well. So we invite all of our industry friends to take it. You can go to PGA.coach, and that's the actual URL there. If you're a PGA member, then you'll scroll up and log in with that member number. And if you're not, if you wanted all of the parents who are volunteering on your PGA Junior League team to take it as well, they can also go through the training. The only difference between the PGA versus non-PGA accounts is the non-PGA people will not have access to all of the activities over in the app. So that's something that if you're planning on using that going forward, you can share those as the professional. So you can put together a full lesson plan and share that with anybody via email. And it includes really great information all the way from what equipment you need to set up, to how much time it's going to take to set up, and how much time the activity will actually take from start to finish. So really great resources there. But I think we are wrapped up with the PGA.coach side, unless we'll do one last call for questions. Perfect. So Kim, if you want to kind of give us a brief description over PGA Junior League and the upcoming changes for 2021.
Absolutely. So we do have a few people on that are looking at PGA Junior League for the first time this next year. And I want to give them just a very brief summary of the program in case you're not aware. But basically, PGA Junior League is an opportunity for young juniors to start the game in a very friendly atmosphere that's going to provide them a great social opportunity to be on a team and develop some potentially lifelong friendships and develop a love for the game at the same time. It's a lot of fun. It's a very friendly format with a 2-person scramble match play format with kind of one team pitted against another team. We have had unbelievably high feedback from all of our players, parents, coaches. It's an extremely popular way to learn the game. One thing that the kids love is the jerseys. They absolutely love wearing their jerseys around the course. And if you're just starting for the first time, you'll notice the same kid wearing the same jersey every day of the week. So moms are going to have to do some extra laundry because the kids are going to want to wear their jerseys every day. But it's been a great way to introduce kids to the game. And we're extremely excited, if you're just looking to do it for the first time this year, to have you jump on board. And Chelsea and I encourage you to reach out to us individually so that we can kind of answer any further specific questions that you might have as you start to build out your program for this next year. For those of you that have done the program in the past, there's a few things I really want to share with you today. Number one is we recently did a survey of the past several years participants from PGA Junior League, kind of just trying to figure out where they are in relation to the current COVID world that we live in. And they came back with that 90% of families say that they are currently comfortable with returning to golf. 91% of families said that they are comfortable with returning to PGA Junior League practices and games. And the top 3 reasons that they listed for enjoying PGA Junior League was, number 1 was, they said, literally fun. Number 2 was skill development. And number 3 is healthy. They view golf and PGA Junior League as a healthy opportunity during the COVID-19 world that we are currently living in. Golf is a much easier sport to physically distance yourself from the other people on your team or opposing teams. So it has seen a huge opportunity here before us to really grow with PGA Junior League this next year. For those of you highly involved with the program, I do want to make you aware of some changes in PGA Junior League for the 2021 season. And a lot of these changes are based off of actually the American development model, so that everything we're doing for our PGA Junior League players falls and aligns with exactly what's recommended by the ADM. So the first thing is the official league size for 2021 has been lowered from a minimum of 32 players to a minimum of 24 players to be eligible to participate in the postseason events. So previously, if you were in a travel league or if you had your own in-house league, you needed to have 32 kids in order to play in the postseason events. This year, it's 24. One of the main reasons for that is with COVID this year, we saw a lot of facilities that were not comfortable traveling. Their families did not want to go to other facilities. They felt much more like they were in a healthier environment, just staying at their own facility. So we want to encourage those facilities that are potentially having families that do not want to travel. We want to encourage them to do those smaller in-house leagues so that they can provide that opportunity to those families. So in 2021, the minimum league size will be 24 players. There will also be more flexibility for local league play this year. So what do I mean by that? If all of the coaches within the league agree, let's say on any given day, maybe you have 6 or 7 kids show up on your team and the other team has, 6 or 7 kids show up. Instead of having to play 4 matches, you could just choose to play 3 matches that day. Or if you have a lot of kids show up for a game and you have 16 kids show up and the other team had 15 kids show up, you could choose to play 7 matches that day in the game. So that way you don't have to just play 4, you could play 7 and more kids get to play more holes. So just more flexibility to allow you as the leader of your programs to create the best possible experience for your families and for your players. There's just a couple postseason changes this year that we're going to let you know about. The first, to be in alignment with the American development model, this year a child must be 10 years of age or older to be able to participate in the postseason. That aligns with the American development model in terms of the level of competition and the traveling aspect. So this year you will need to be 10 years or older to compete in the postseason. And for the 13U division, instead of having 10 all-star team players this year, we're going to have 8. So every all-star team this year will align with 8. Since we went from 32 to 24 being our minimum, we felt like it's sometimes hard to fill a full team of 10. So that way, if we have 8, it gives those facilities with 24 a better chance of getting 8 players to be able to compete in that all-star experience. The 17U division, we are expanding it this year. so that there will be both sectional and regional championships. And in a couple years, kind of depending on how those postseason events go, there's the potential for future national championships as well. So we are looking forward to being able to offer some 17U postseason events this year. And then both the regional and national championships this year will feature kind of the aggregate stroke play format, kind of a qualifying round before we go into the match play portion of the competition for the final rounds to determine the champions for both the regional and the national championships. So I wanted to just give you all those updates on PGA Junior League so that you know what to look forward to for the 2021 season. I'm going to pass things back over here to Chelsea, and we will answer any questions that you've got on all of that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kim, for all of those updates. Really looking forward to that 2021 season. Does anybody have any questions regarding the PGA Junior League updates? All right, so we're going to slide right on into our two guest speakers today, or two other guest speakers today. We do have Matt Barton from Oakhurst Golf and Country Club and Cole Meinke from Thornapple Point. And they are here to kind of talk about the ways that PGA.coach and PGA Junior League integrate. They both have finished the PGA.coach training, and they are both PGA Junior League captains as well. But Matt, I think we're going to start with you. So you've been a longtime PGA Junior League captain, and you've recently completed the PGA.coach training. Can you share with us some of your insights on how they work well together?
Yeah, first off, thank you, Kim and Chelsea, for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to speak and help some other people. Just to touch on a few things that have already been talked about, I think it's important to realize that we're in a transition right now. So you, as Kim had talked about, when we became PGA professionals, I never remember even the word coach being uttered. So we've got to both change how us PGA professionals are acting, but also we're retraining some of these parents. When they're coming to one of my classes or PGA Junior League practices, it may not look like what they've anticipated, either what they went through as kids or what they just have this thought in their mind of, okay, we're going to stand on the range for an hour and bang as many balls as we can. And I think that it's important to educate them that that's not what we're going to be doing any longer. So, really PGA.coach, I think PGA professionals need to look at that as a resource. So I love the checklists that are in there. I think the one for parents is exceptional. Every parent that comes to either one of my new clinics or PGA Junior League is going to receive that checklist to make sure they're checking their ego at the door. They're checking what they actually want their children to get out of golf or sport as an individual. Because we're trying to get them to play for life. And we're trying to find as many fun avenues as we can for them to do that. In my indoor studio, the sign that hangs right above the door is athletes first. And that's a change from what we used to do in just teaching golf as coaches. So back to kind of Cole's question, what he said earlier, how are we encouraging them to do other sports? I'm not one that's necessarily going to bang my head against the wall if a parent says, we're all in, we're golf, and my kid doesn't like basketball, or he doesn't get to play enough in baseball, or it's too slow. I say, okay, that's fine. But, in my coaching, then I'm taking that responsibility to turn them into athletes. So I think if you use that PGA coach, and, I know the first time that I went in and tried to design a program and I did it for the younger kids, they're like all agility and throwing or kicking or jumping. There's very few golf skills, if you will, specifically that are being taught in there. So that should really be, something that PGA professionals or parents, anybody that say, wow, there must be something to this. We need to develop our athletes. And if you can be a good baseball player, you're going to be good at golf. If you're good at soccer, if you're an athlete, you're going to be able to play any sport that you get interested in. So, we spend a lot of time, most of my clinics or lessons are an hour and a half. And 30 minutes of that is simply athletic training. And again, that's something that we have to talk and explain to the parents and say, this is what you're getting when you're coming to a coach now. You know, you may be able to find some old school instructors that are still just going to stand there and just talk about how everybody has to do everything the same, but we're slowly transitioning away from that. And you know, it's great because it's coming from the PGA now. You know, there's been Titleist Performance Institute, there's been US Kids, and they've been talking about these things for many, many years, but you had to go out on your own and take these certifications and spend a lot of money to do it. So when I went through the PGA.coach, it wasn't that I found anything new necessarily, but it certainly, they pulled from all these other resources to kind of put it all in one place and make it free. So it's not like you're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars to take a lot of this training. So I think that part is really, really important. Again, as a resource, PGA.coach is just new ideas. I think sometimes we can get very stale in some of the things that we do and how our practices look. So going on and scrolling through some of those videos, you may find a new game that you like. You may find a new workout that you like, and just to try to keep the kids engaged so that they are having that fun and learning. I also think that PGA Junior League and PGA.coach, one drives to the other. So, you know, I've been successful with PGA Junior League, but every time a kid who I think has got the skill set or available to play PGA Junior League, I'm talking to their parents. I'm talking to them saying, okay, you know, would you consider playing in PGA Junior League? Here's how it works. Here's a fun, easy way to get on the golf course. Because a lot of times, depending on where you are, getting on the golf course can be difficult. Kids spend a lot of time on the driving range or the putting green or the short game area, and they've never even experienced the golf course before. So it's a great way to be able to get them out there, pair them with a player who's played PGA Junior League in the past, and really give them a way to get out and experience it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Do you have any types of best practices that you would use with PGA Junior League and PGA.coach? Have you kind of seen anything that really made your program kind of explode during that regular season, or anything that really just connected with the types of kids that you're working with?
Yeah, that's a question that Seth had about, you know, success in communicating. And I think that's really where it's at, is really communicating, whether you're at a private facility like I am, where, you know, I've got a demographic right there with a bunch of potential students for me, or whether you're going out and running, you know, a public PGA Junior League team. Either way can work. The fact is, parents are looking for this. They just don't know where to look at this point. So, you know, that's where some of the advertising the PGA is doing may drive it to a site, and make sure that your information is on there. Make sure that these people can find, whether you offer it to open outside non-members or maybe you don't. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me. Unfortunately, we don't do non-members, but I can say, you know, check out this facility down the road. They have a program and the coach is good, and they'll be able to get you on their team, type of thing. The kids are also looking for these group activities. When I talk to kids about why they like other sports, either more than golf, or why it's been taking them so long to get to golf, it's that group atmosphere. They have friends who are playing tennis. All their friends are on their baseball team or football team or basketball team. So the fact that we're bringing this group atmosphere in is really, you've got to pitch that and make that a huge priority to the fun piece. It's not just golf. You're not just on your own. And, you know, in the past, we've done a bad job putting kids on the ladies' tees, and they go out and make 10s and 12s and 14s, and it's terrible, and they quit. You know, we tend to set our golf courses up very short for PGA Junior League. I don't care if the kids are driving the green. Great. Let's go make an eagle. They'll talk about that for another week. So, you know, making it successful for them. And then a lot of that ends up being word of mouth, visual. So I think at your facility, whether it's, you know, online or just at the facility, even during our practices, everybody wears their jerseys. So I have two teams. So all of a sudden I've got 24 kids running around with these bright orange or blue jerseys on. Other parents might see it. Other kids might see it. And they'll come up and say, what is going on? You know, we're pretty vocal in our warm up. So again, it's just a big fun piece, but you're trying to make it as visual as you can. The social media aspect, both through your club, through your own social media outlets, make sure that you're taking that time to put practices on there, put scores of games, update people, that the golf course is going to be closed today for PGA Junior League. That might entice some people to figure out why they can't get on the golf course. And we've encouraged people to come out and watch as well. We have a lot of homeowners around our golf course, so they, especially some of the older people, they'll get in their carts and come out and watch some of these matches and have a lot of fun. Spectators being around. I mean, a lot of times if you're encouraging these people to come out, all of a sudden, somebody looks out their window or sees from another hole, 15 carts going down a hole with these kids in jerseys on. It's really quite attention grabbing. So that's a best practice that I think you need to use. And then lastly, again, asking kids. If I see them in the grill or in the pro shop and they look that age that they could play PGA Junior League, I'm asking them if they're interested. I'm asking a lot of my players, okay, what neighbors do you have? What friends do you have who maybe aren't playing right now that we can talk about getting into PGA Junior League? So, Seth, hopefully that answers your question. If not, ask a more direct one.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Matt. It sounds like I got to come down and see one of your practices and matches. They sound pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of closing comments or anything else you'd like to share before we move on to Cole?
I don't think so. Just certainly if anybody has any specific, questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If there's anything that, anybody that has any questions on resources or what some of those social media posts, again, PGA Junior League does a pretty good job giving you some of these guidelines to say, okay, here's an email template. Throw a little bit of information in there and then push that out to as many people as you can. But appreciate everything you and Kim do for us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Matt. Yeah, absolutely, Seth.
So it wasn't as direct as it should be. My question was, my main concern with taking over PGA Junior League in my course is retaining during practices and matches, retaining the attention of the younger age group. We currently have, I don't remember how many kids, but when I go out there, I've kind of watched this year. It's my first year at this course, and our kind of honorary head pro, Lynn Jansen, you guys probably don't know the name. He does a great job, but I watch, and there's a lot of young kids, and me being new to it, that's an area that I've struggled with, keeping young kids' attention throughout a lesson point. I was curious if Matt or Cole could kind of touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. I think, make sure that at this point, I think if you're new to it, make sure you have some hands on deck. There are other ways. I know that they were showing one of those pictures about volunteers. But if you've got either some of your students that perhaps you're teaching already that maybe are on a high school team, you can give a discount to a lesson to have them come and help. But the biggest thing that you need to do is, I get really frustrated even watching my daughter go play soccer. You can see some of the things that maybe you would want to change in your coaching. I don't like kids standing around. So I have multiple stations, and they are not at the same station for very long. So especially with younger kids, their attention spans are very, very short. And normally if you're dealing with maybe some misbehavior, it's because they're bored. You're not holding their attention. The activity's not holding their attention. So all of a sudden they find Johnny to laugh and screw around with, and then you're ending up hurting cats, and nobody's getting anything done. So many stations, and then as many hands on deck as you feel like you need so that you can run that as well as you can. And as you get better at that, and as kids are longer in your program or longer in PGA Junior League, and they start to understand, most of my things are structured very similarly. The activities are different, but the time frame, how long they're in an activity, we're going to warm up at the beginning, we're going to have a cool down at the end. They're moving around. So as kids understand what your program looks like, they become more accustomed to that, and you won't have to do or rely on as many people to necessarily help you. But yeah, the biggest thing is just keep them moving. keep them going to another activity. So again, you can use that PGA.coach has got a lot of resources in there. You know, for me, like if I'm specifically having them work on, let's just say, a putting drill, or working on, you know, marking the golf ball, or ready golf, they're going to do something, but on their way back to the end of the line, they've got 2 or 3 more things that they're going to do that I know they can do on their own before they get back in line with the rest of the people to come through the specific drill that we're all really working on. So just keep them moving.
Awesome. Thank you. Cole, I'd love to hear from you as well. Has PGA.coach kind of changed the way you structure your junior programming at all, or kind of what's your best takeaway from PGA.coach?
So the training, hello everybody, if you don't know me, I guess. My name's Cole Meinke. I'm the head golf professional at Thornapple Point in Grand Rapids, and started a PGA Junior League team this year at that facility. It was our first time having a team like that there. Mainly just a very nice public golf course with a lot to offer, but junior golf through the past couple of years has been something that now I'm leaning into. So as far as PGA.coach and some takeaways that I had from there, the main thing is we're building long-term golfers. We're building players that over the course of the coming years are going to play or not play based on how we guide them. So my biggest takeaway is athletic development at a young age and through the stages of their young career as golfers is very, very important. And the biggest thing that I'm working towards is being able to measure that. So that's going to be something that I'm working towards next year in that programming. But with the PGA.coach, the ADM model itself, switching up the gameplay. So, you know, having drills at the beginning of the season that involve skills, starting off doing them throwing balls instead of you know, just using the clubs at targets specifically, and then being able to go to the last practice of the year and see those same golf skills being measured, basically the acoustics of them hitting targets, is much more frequent. They really enjoyed it and saw that improvement over the entire summer, as opposed to, you know, just doing the say bare minimum in terms of practices. I volunteered a lot of my time this summer to see if consistent weekly practices would be more beneficial than just say a grip, not necessarily say like a full swing lesson, a short game lesson, and a putting lesson. Having the students for 8 weeks of practice for an hour each week not only gave me more time to see how their development was going, but also able to see, you know, how those different games and skill sets, balance exercises really did transfer to golf skills throughout the entire season. So that was my biggest takeaway from the coaching platform, I'd say, in the ADM model.
Awesome. I love it. I love how you're kind of structuring your programming to kind of meet those needs of your students and developing their athletic potential. Do you have any best practices to share? Any activities that you do with your PGA Junior League team that have been a home run?
Yeah, so I'll touch on two. So one I kind of bled into on my first response there is consistent weekly practices. So for the first 2 seasons that I was a PGA Junior League coach, I was able to have those kids on a consistent schedule at a private club to where they were there and going to be there playing either way. So getting them there at a consistent time seemed to work there. And then going into my new team, that really, you know, seemed to help different, a different setting, but keeping it consistent, keeping them with clubs in their hands and playing throughout the whole summer. Not only, I think, increased their skill level, but increased what we touched on earlier, that is fun, and keeping those kids engaged and engaged long-term just trying to hit a golf ball really well is very challenging. And if the expectation is that they can hit it with their driver just as far as, you know, the oldest kid on the team as the least experienced kid on the team, that doesn't really bode well for their confidence. So, you know, just kind of engaging with the kids and building that rapport is another benefit of weekly practice. They're your team. That is my squad. It's like I played t-ball, and I'm sure a lot of others played sports growing up. I didn't play golf in an organized fashion growing up. I didn't grow up at a, you know, country club per se where there was junior golf offered, but was able to, you know, work some hours or, you know, at different businesses in the summer to be able to play at a public course in my area growing up. So that's a really big thing that is going to retain golfers long term, is if they enjoy it more, then they'll play more. I know it sounds so simple and we say it all the time, but that's truly been one of the big takeaways. Best practices is just building that rapport, staying consistent. And then the other one is small group sessions. So even within the practices themselves, I had 9 kids on the team for our first season. So I was able to split them up into 3s and practice really well. I think that for me was able, you know, set clear expectations on each station, have 3 for each practice, and then they rotate to each one, working on specific skills for each practice. Yeah, I mean, truly, I think that how they get to play when it's not a competitive atmosphere is where they're going to build those skills and learn something. In the matches, they definitely learn a lot, but sometimes it is humility, and that it doesn't always work out exactly the way they thought it would. And I think that getting them in practice, able to set those expectations, and then working on things where they can see improvement throughout this summer really helps, even in the competition side of things, in the PGA Junior League matches themselves, because that is a challenge in and of itself.
Cole, thank you so much. We really appreciate all your insights and all of Matt's insights as well. I have, before I open it back up for questions, I have 2 things I would like to share. Is an additional insight into Seth's question earlier. Is I know several PGA professionals that have told me that with their younger kids, that what they'll actually do is they will challenge their older kids. So they'll challenge their 12 and 13-year-olds to be mentors for their younger kids. And so they'll make sure that maybe one of them is in a small group, you know, with one young child. And so that way, hey, you know, they will be challenged with that. And that's one thing that they've told me that's been extremely successful. And it's a way that they have found to help develop leadership skills in some of their older kids. And it's a way for them to teach those older kids about giving back to the younger golfers and helping them develop their skills as well. So that's something that you might want to look at too, is kind of developing a little bit of a mentorship program between your younger and your older players. Then the one other thing I wanted to share was, if, when you think about PGA.coach, think of it as a 3-step process. One is going to the PGA.coach website and going through the actual training. Number 2 would be to download the mobile app and actually go in there and really look at all the different lesson plans and activities, look at the Parent Resource Center, do all of those things. And then number 3, which I don't think that we've commented on much yet today, is after you've done those first 2 things, number 3, be sure to go to PGA.com, which is the consumer website where consumers can go to research and find a golf professional. Because when you go to PGA.com, after you have been certified in ADM, you can go on there and create your own professional profile. So that way, anybody that's in your area looking for someone as an instructor can find you on there, and you have great freedom to create whatever profile you would like to showcase and highlight everything that you're doing at your facility. So I would highly suggest that you go to PGA.com and make sure that you fill out that profile as well. We have covered a lot today, and I really appreciate all 4 of our speakers. So Chris Snyder, TJ Buchanan, Matt Barton, Cole Meinke. You all were amazing. You shared a lot with us today. I know I learned a lot. And I know that you would be willing to help anybody that needs more help. So if we have anybody on the call that would like to connect with one of those individuals, please reach out to Chelsea or I, and we will absolutely connect you with them for further discussion. But before we jump off, are there any other questions that you'd like to ask today? Sounds good. I think we're good on questions today. So a huge thank you to all of our speakers. Next week, we're doing another webinar next Tuesday, but that one's going to be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And on that one, we're going to be discussing the power of in-house leagues. So I know, Chelsea, you've lined up a couple guest speakers, so I'll let you fill them in on that one.
Yeah, we have Chris Osentoski from Shepherd's Hollow and Alex Lorenz from Forest Acres MSU.
Perfect. So we're going to have another great webinar next week. Chelsea and I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. We really enjoyed our time with you, and we hope we'll see the majority of you next week for that call as well. So take care and have a healthy week.
Thank you.